Right. Hello, everyone. My name is D2 Kasui. I'd like to welcome you to our Urban Financial Services Coalition special session entitled Our History, Our Stories, Our Future, featuring Charles O. Stewart, Executive Vice President, retired for Regions Bank, and founding member of Urban Financial Services Coalition. So with that, today we have a action-packed agenda. We will have the welcome to our program. Welcome, everyone. And I think we already started welcoming each other, letting everyone know where we're calling in from and how we are participating in today's program. We very much appreciate that. Next, we're going to do some networking. That's where we get a chance to reconnect with our colleagues and meet some new colleagues, share a little bit about ourselves. And then we'll have the Urban Financial Services Coalition National President to say a few words. Then we'll have an introduction of our speaker. And then we will have our conversation and open up for Q&A. And I have a very, very special treat today. I will be showing volume 2 of the UFSC's highlights of the 1980s and 1990s. So a special video presentation that I will share with you as we walk down memory lane. So with that, we're going to do our breakout session. And in our breakout session, I would like for you to share your name and organization that you're with, or if you're not currently employed with an organization, you can share the name of an organization that you are volunteering with. And then share one reason why you think it is important for individuals to know our history, why it's important for us to know our history. All right, so I'm gonna put you in the Zoom room. I'm gonna give you 8.5 minutes, so make sure that you give everybody enough time to have a conversation and get through the session. So I will meet y'all back here in 8.5 minutes. And all you have to do is click on the link and that will put you in your breakout room. Just click on the link. So welcome back. I would like to turn over the floor to our esteemed president from Kansas City, Missouri. She was feeling a little down today because the Kansas City Chiefs lost on Sunday and the Dallas Cowboys won on Sunday.
Don't you start it. Do not start it, okay? Don't start none, won't be none, okay? Because we still are the reigning champions, okay? The Kansas City Chiefs are still the champions. So, yes, sir.
Absolutely. Madam President, the floor is yours.
Yes, I just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited about the call this evening. And Charles, I ran home and jumped on early so I could talk to you before and we could say hello, hello, hello. So hello, and thank you so much for being a part of our history as one of the founding fathers to this organization. I actually met you in Little Rock, Arkansas when I came down years and years and years ago. And since then, we've attended certain events. So thank you so much for being here tonight. And I'm going to say this one thing. I know you don't want me to keep talking, D2, but I got to say this. In my breakout room was Winnie Stamps. WK is Winnie Stamps. And I'm telling you, we just shared our love that we have for each other. And, what a wonderful, awesome time that we've had over the years. And it's good to know that people are still, like Paulette is still wanting to know what's going on with the organization, although maybe not as active. It's wonderful to have some of the founding fathers and the people, Ernest Skinner and Otis Watson, participating in this because people want to know where we've been and where we're going.
Absolutely.
So what I can say is we are 19 days, let me see here, in a few hours from voting. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for all of us to get out. If you haven't already voted and vote. I know Missouri is not offering early voting, but I have one daughter that lives in Dallas, Texas, and the state of Texas, you can vote. She voted today. So I encourage all of us to make sure that we vote, because our vote does count. And this is a very, very important presidential election. So again, thank you all so much for joining this evening. I'm going to step away and take over this floor, because I cannot wait to hear from him this evening and know where we've been. I know some of that, Charles, but I want to know where you're going to help me take this to, because in 2024, we will be in existence for 50 years. 2024 marks a 50th anniversary. And I need Demita Barbie, I need Otis Watson, I need Ernie Skinner, I need Charles Stewart, and I need all you top professionals to help us take this thing on to the next level. Blessings to all of you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Truelove. You know, we appreciate you. We know that, you know, leadership makes a difference. And one of the hallmarks of Urban Financial Services Coalition is that we can get the best and the brightest to lead the organization. And so tonight, we have a very special guest. We have our speaker that we will be having a conversation with is Executive Vice President, retired, and a founding member of the National Association of Urban Bankers. After working in accounting with the Teletype Corporation. How about that? Teletype Corporation. Our speaker began a 37-year banking career in 1971 with the First National Bank in Little Rock, Arkansas. He became the first African-American banking executive in the state of Arkansas, having navigated 5 mergers and acquisitions beginning in 1981. Our speaker moved into a role of increasing responsibility with greater reach and authority with First Commercial Bank, Regions Bank, and Regions Financial Corporation in Birmingham, Alabama. In 1998, our speaker was tasked at Regions Financial Corporation with establishing and managing a new division for the $147 billion corporation. The billion-dollar man, our speaker. This division oversaw the community development operations of 135 community development officers in 16 states in the South, Southeastern, and Midwestern United States. Our speaker over the next 10 years enjoyed an incredible tenure with Region Financial Corporation after setting up a new business line for public, governmental, institutional, and nonprofit organizations. Our speaker ended his banking career in 2008 as an executive vice president with Regions. And his bio is deep and long, and you can see the rest of it on our Urban Financial Services Coalition's website. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big virtual round of applause to founder Charles Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It is so good to see my good friend Ola. And you may or may not know it. You and my mom have the same name. So you, when I first met you, you had a special place with me already. And I do have fun memories of time that we spent and particularly in Kansas City with you. I believe I did receive an award that I think you were responsible for from the Federal Reserve Bank there. And I have very fond memories of spending that time, and thank you for your persistence and for the way that you have handled making this arrangement. I am just totally gratified to have been invited to be a part of this, and then to see some of my my long-term friends, Otis and Mr. Skinner. It is so good to see you guys. And Ruth Carpenter, Ruth Martin now, who was one of the national secretary for a number of years. She sends her regards to each of you, and I think that she knows where a lot of the skeletons are hidden, and so I would to invite her to be a part of this type of dialogue. I think she would. She tries to be shy, but Ruth is an incredible person, and she's doing very well. And she sends her regards to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're so glad, and we'll have to get her on the call. You know, one of the things of this program, you know, our history, our stories, our future, is that we're really trying to document, you know, the history of African Americans in the financial services industry. You know, y'all were on the forefront, you know, of this thing. You know, especially, you know, when you think about, you know, what happened in the 1960s and all the civil rights legislation that was passed, and you know, and then after that, you know, it opened up new opportunities that, you know, African Americans, you know, hadn't experienced before. And then out of that, you know, comes the National Association of Urban Bankers. And so many stories that we do not want to let go by without capturing. That's why this program is very important. But before we get into all of that good stuff, we would like to just start off with you telling us a little bit about, you know, you before Urban Financial Services Coalition. Well, first, let's talk about how you're doing in the pandemic. How you been holding up?
Well, I think about like everybody, but I've been extremely busy actually. During the pandemic, I had started years ago, now 28 years ago, an organization called the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame, and we have a foundation. And shortly after the pandemic started, and once we heard of the disparate impact that it was having on minority communities and particularly Black and Hispanic people, we immediately put together a COVID relief initiative through our foundation, and we provided grants to organizations throughout the state who were working to address the issues that were caused by the pandemic, issues of hunger, educational problems that were created when the schools closed, and in many of our marginalized communities, it affects Black kids and other minorities disproportionately. They're gonna suffer a lot, and so we worked with helping to get PPE to many of our small Black towns throughout Arkansas, and working with the Office of Health Equity through our health department. We immediately launched into that, and so we were able to get out nearly 100 grants to small communities and things. So we got immediately involved in that. I also, after I retired, I went to work for Heifer International for a period of time, and then I built an apartment building, and I was in the middle of selling that building, trying to sell that building, when COVID hit. So I spent a lot of time with that, and we finally closed that out on July the 31st. And then I worked with my Sunday school. So every week we're doing a Zoom Sunday school now. And so I've managed to stay pretty busy in handling all of that, and family matters and what have you. So I've been pretty busy. I'm ready for it to be over like everybody, but I'm finding contentment in the things that I'm being able to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. We know, and that's big. people who give, find ways to give in any season. and I see that you still, even though you retired, you're still finding a way to lead, still finding a way to make a difference in our community. So hats off to you. We appreciate that. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about, who were your mentors, that helped to, instill this, the idea and concept of leadership and the idea and concept of giving back?
Well, I'm the product of a segregated school system. And while while we hear about the deficiencies and so forth of Black schools and what have you, where I grew up, all of the institutions within my community were intact. The schools were intact. Our churches, some of our social organizations, our families were basically intact. And so there were a number of mentors in school, but I think my father was probably one of my greatest influences. He was a Methodist, an African Methodist Episcopal preacher, so I'm a PK, and so there were a lot of things, and he was a businessman, so a lot of things that I learned, a lot of principles, a lot of I would like to think that he shaped my ideas of what community is about and what giving back and being a part of that, and about excellence in all that we did. He expected it out of all. There were 8 children in the family, and he expected it out of all of us. And I think he set an outstanding example for that. So I would have to give preeminence to my father as my number one role model or mentor.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the hallmarks of Urban Financial Services Coalition is organizations like ours, is the opportunity to have really great mentors. And it's really great when you can have mentors in your own household. That's really the foundation. So those of you who are participating in the call today, if you have someone that's a family member that was a strong mentor to you, go ahead and throw their name in the chat. It's one way that you can give them a little love. Let us know, who was that person in your family that really made a difference, that mentored and sheltered, told you things that you needed to hear, even though you didn't want it, and help you to move forward. And so while they're doing that, Founder Stewart, why don't you go ahead and give us some context about how, this, NAUB thing got started?
Very good. In 1973, I attended the National Urban League Conference. That used to be, and it may still be, but it used to be a kind of a must on the agenda of most aspiring or socially conscious Black people would go to the National Urban League Conference. And we were there, I think I was there perhaps with one of my colleagues, a guy named James Rogers, that many of the older seasoned members might remember. But we were there in Atlanta, and I met Bob Samuels. And Bob and some of the other members from New York, and we eventually got involved in a conversation, and they were extremely surprised, if not shocked, to see that there were Black bank executives or people, Blacks in banking in Arkansas. And we had that discussion, and we surmised that if there are Black bankers in Arkansas, there are probably bankers throughout the country. I think New York was already had an organization of bankers within New York. And so we just kind of got our heads together and before we left that meeting, basically committed to trying to put together a national conference the next year that would be an organizing conference to begin this organization that would connect African Americans in banking, or in banking, it was specifically banking, throughout the country. And so one of the things that I did, I went back to Arkansas and started preparing and putting together, and I organized our local chapter. And we attended, I don't know if there were very many of us. I think there may have been 2 or 3 who attended the very first year or the organizing conference in 1974. And ironically, when we got back to Arkansas, and we did a press release to let them know that we were now a part of this organization that was formed, the National Association of Urban Bankers. I got a call from the president, from the CEO of the Arkansas Bankers Association, and or he had called my president and said, "What is this I hear about Charles Stewart helping to form a collective bargaining organization in banking?" And so I spent some time explaining to them what our purpose was and what our mission was. And after getting that straight, we had their support. We had just a broad base of support from the banks here in Arkansas, and I'm very sure that Blacks across the country had that local support of the banking community at the beginning of this organization.
Absolutely. That is simply amazing. You know, when I think about, you know, the idea that, you know, here's a bunch of young men, and I'm sure you were pretty young at the time, and young ladies, you know, I could see if y'all went to ABA meeting, right? You know, because y'all would be able to point each other out very quickly if it was a Make America Bankers Association meeting, you know. But you were at the Urban League, so just a whole bunch of Black people at the Urban League.
Absolutely.
You know,
and from all over the country. It was always a must-do event as far as I was concerned back in the day.
Absolutely. You know, so those of you who are seasoned members of Urban Financial Services Coalition, go ahead and put in the chat the year you joined and what chapter you joined the organization. And
Charles,
so,
Charles, a question, please. And it's so great seeing you, my brother. Peace and blessings. All right. Say again, how did they describe this group that when the Arkansas Banking Association representative called, what term did they use to describe you guys?
Collective bargaining. In other words, they said we were forming and which couldn't have been further from the truth in terms of what our mission was.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. And so during that time frame, as those of us put in the chat, you know, what year you joined the organization and what chapter you joined, what do you think was some of the biggest challenges, you know, facing African Americans in banking, and why, you know, the organization was needed in that time frame?
Well, I think most of the jobs, and I think it's true for probably many of us who were in that first wave of African Americans who were given opportunities in these industries that had been for so long had been closed to us. I came to learn years later that there was an organization that had been formed called the Human Relations Council. And the Human Relations Council was an organization made up of white business leaders and Black leaders, many in the professional community and what have you. And they came together with a level of intentionality that they were going to break some of these barriers down. At that time, we were the first wave after the active part of the civil rights movement, after the protesting and after the marches and all of that. And for my generation, Dr. King gave us a challenge. He said that when the doors of opportunity open, and that they would open, that they needed to have people who were ready and equipped to step into those doors and to do those jobs and to keep those doors open for subsequent generations. And so I think it was a time of goodwill, a time when Black and white communities were, in fact, leadership were working together to open those doors, because at the same time that First National Bank was hiring executives, Black executives or Blacks who would be on a trajectory to get them into management, so was the power company, so was the gas company, so was the major insurance companies. And so there was a certain level of, as I said, intentionality that was taking place during that time, where I believe that for the most part, they were committed to this effort and committed to making these what were, I guess, kind of like experiments to some extent, to see if it would work and if we could be successful in the banking industry or in business in general.
Absolutely. And so as you think about that, that's a time that people are, feeling that they're on the right side of history, participating in the change. When you think about, a lot of times when we look back at history, people always feel like it's homogeneous, like everybody, wanted to unite, everybody in Arkansas, wanted to be a part of the Arkansas chapter, so tell us, you have some folks who were, apprehensive, about being a part of such a group, or what were some of the challenges that, Black bankers faced, in climbing the corporate ladder and working together to climb the corporate ladder?
Well, I think that in many instances, being the first of anything, I think there's a certain level of isolation that you feel, a certain level of you think that whatever you're going through, and while these organizations might have made that commitment to our success, you had to know that there were people within within other white people within banking who were not happy about it. I had a friend who was once telling a white person that he had this friend who was at the time, I think I might have been a vice president in banking. And he said, and the white guy told him, yeah, for every good job a Black man has, it's a good job that a white man didn't get. And so he was not very pleased. And so there were people who were laying traps. There were people who were betting on your failure and trying to help you to fail. But there were also people who were in your corner and working with you and supporting you. And I think that it was, in fact, a period where it was unpopular to be on that other side of history. you know, right now they've made it okay to be on the wrong side of history. But during that time, it became unpopular to be on that side. But there were people very clearly on the other side of history, and so I was fortunate enough, and just to express how important the bank felt that it was. My mentor in the bank was chairman of the board of my bank, and he and the president, as I said, were very, very supportive of whatever it was that I brought to them that was for professional development or enhancement to my career. They would support it. And when the idea of the NAUB was presented, the banks were very, very supportive of what we were doing, and sharing with each other and supporting each other. And then we started, they built into it the professional development modules that we were experiencing when we go away to a conference. And it was more than just a good time, but it presented learning opportunities. And I think, and I'm convinced that it made us better bankers as a result of that.
Absolutely. You know, I've heard a lot of stories about some of the good times. You know, we won't, since we're recording, we won't put all those out there. I won't mention any stories that involve Otis Watson. I won't mention any of those, you know, tonight. You know, we do those on Friday nights, you know, after we have some drinks. So when you look back over your time at NAUB, you know, give us, you know, one or two of your favorite proud accomplishments or stories that really, you know, that you're fond of.
Well, one of the things that I think for me, one of the fondest memories was when Little Rock hosted the national convention, national conference, and that was in, I believe, in 1981. Was it 81?
1981.
1981.
1980 was Boston.
Right, 1981, and we went in that February when we went to Detroit for our annual meeting. I was on to present the conference report, and I rose to and went to the podium, and I kind of got heckled. You know, some of I don't think it was Ernest Skinner, but somebody from the back of the room with the New York accent said, "Who the hell wants to go to Little Rock, Arkansas?" And then I think a guy from Philadelphia said, how did Little Rock get the conference in the first place? You know, and I had prepared a very slick presentation, and when they did that, I just slammed my portfolio together, and I said, Mr. President, I am not going to apologize for Little Rock or try to explain Arkansas. I said, I dare you to come. Closed my book and went and sat down. I said, that's my report. And they came on the dare. They came on the dare, and the Little Rock Conference was kind of the standard by which other conferences were judged for the next 10 or so years. So that's one of my fondest memory, and we really knew how to show them a good time, and so, but that's one of my fond memories.
Charles, thanks for letting us know that. Earlier on, I shared with the folks that my recollection was when we had the discussion about holding the conference in Little Rock, that many people felt as though Governor Forbes was around the corner. And and I was surprised at that sense of dread of many of the folks who were there. That was absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, I do think people, they didn't know what they were going to, but I think that image was there. And one of the things that they learned was, I mean, truly were exposed to Southern hospitality, and the entire community embraced the conference. We were able to get we got a country club that was not in active use with membership, but we got that country club, and we had golf outings, and we had just an incredible time. We brought in, I think at the time, our congressman was on the banking committee in the U.S. Congress, and came and spoke, and our governor was a part of it. And so the entire community came out to support this effort, and they genuinely were glad that we were there. And so.
Absolutely. We have Otis Watson wanted to make a comment, ask a question.
Great. Hey, Otis, how you doing?
Charles, how you doing, man?
See you, man.
It's only $5, man. I'm just kidding. Hey, let me move up from 1981.
Mm-hmm.
We returned to Little Rock, ironically, in 1988,
Mm-hmm.
in which we had a board meeting there. And I think some of the younger members would appreciate you sharing a story. We were in a board meeting, and the board meeting was getting ready to end, and you came in and said, well, there's someone like to buy everybody a drink in the bar. And we said, well, hey, drink in the bar. It could have been Mickey Mouse. We're going to go to the bar and get a free drink, so we just packed up. And then we went into the bar, and there you were with the governor of Arkansas at the time, Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton bought all of us a drink. So why don't you, tell us a little bit of how you made that happen?
Well, I really, I don't remember the details of it, but I believe he was there for another, in fact, he was there for another meeting. And I knew that I was made aware that the governor was in the building that we were in, and I went and I asked him. I told him that I had these bankers there from all over the country, and asked him if he would just come and greet us, and so it turned into that event, and he I think he enjoyed it as much as the board did. So, but it was a great opportunity. I'd forgotten all about that.
There you go.
You don't want to forget that. You don't want to forget that, brother.
Look, hobsnobbing with the future president. How about that?
Right.
That one of the things that happened with NAUB and UFSC, you never know, who you're going to run into. And so, Charles, when you think about your career, what are some of the proudest, moments? I know you and I, talked about, a couple of presentations that you had to do, and you were nervous, and the importance of getting your EVP title, and how that, played out in negotiations. In your organization. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I guess you're referring to in 1998, First Commercial Bank that I was part of at the time merged with Regions Bank out of Birmingham, and just quite frankly. It was a time that I was quite anxious about that particular merger, and didn't really know where I would end up in the organization. At the time, I was heading up public affairs for my bank, which included managing government accounts and also doing some of the lobbying for the bank. And my president told me that, well, they don't have this division at Regions. And so he said, I want you to stay on my team. So I'm going to temporarily move you into private banking. And so I went into private banking, and the guy that was managing private banking was a senior vice president, as I was a senior vice president. And we immediately, I had a higher profile than he did, and he immediately started trying to manage me. And I hadn't been managed in 25 years. And so we were bumping heads. And so one day he came into my office and told me he was going to take my secretary away and and oh, we'll get somebody to answer your phones. And I literally, not physically, but I threw him out of my office. And I threw my boss out of my office. And so I'm sitting there not knowing what was going to happen. And the phone rings about 2 p.m. And it was a guy from Birmingham. And I thought, oh, this is it. You know, I'm out of here. But this guy offered me, he said, we've heard about the work that you've been doing in Arkansas, and we became a big bank by merging a lot of small banks, and we would like for you to come to Birmingham and talk to us about some ideas that we have that you may be able to help us with. So long story short, I go to Birmingham and put in, you know, and then got informed what they were looking for, came back to Arkansas, put together a plan specifically as to how I'm going to do it. And I go back to Birmingham the next month to make a report to their full board. And I, you know, just quite frankly, I'm a little bit nervous because I felt about Birmingham probably like a lot of you guys felt about Little Rock.
You move from Forbes to Bull Corner.
So I didn't really know what I was going into, but anyway, long story short, I get there and met with the guy who would be my boss, and we went out to dinner, and what I thought was a done deal, that night he told me, well, you've got to convince the board to do this now. And I'm thinking convinced, I thought I was just telling them how we were going to do it, that they had already made the decision. But anyway, long story short, I get back, we finish dinner, I go to my hotel, and I put together my little slide presentation. And, but when I started trying to practice my presentation, nothing would come to me. Nothing would come into my head. And I said, now I can't just stand up there and read these slides. And so I ended up, I couldn't go to sleep. I stayed up all night long. And I'm not ashamed to say I prayed over that thing. And once I prayed over it, it just came to me the next morning when I got up that failure is not an option. I'm gonna do this thing, and failure is not an option. So that was about 6 o'clock. I started getting ready. The bank was 1 block down the street, and I get down there, and the guy who I was working with there said, well, are you ready? And I said, well, I mean, I have a presentation, but it doesn't have any sizzle. And I said, you know, we didn't have anybody that could, you know, kind of help me with my slide presentation. And so he said, we got a guy upstairs and he loves that kind of stuff. He's, do you have your disc? So I got my disc and went up there, took it to him. And in about 30 minutes, I mean, he had all kinds of animation and things coming in and that just gave it the sizzle that I needed, but I still didn't have a clue as to what I was gonna say. And so we go up, with 10 o'clock, we were called up to the boardroom and I go in and huge board table and it is surrounded by these white men. All of them had, you know, silver hair. And I'm walking in there and I'm thinking, I wonder what side were they on, you know, in the stuff that was going on in the 60s and so forth. And, but long story short, when I got up to make my presentation, I mean, everything that came into my head was absolutely the perfect thing to be said. And I was amazed at it. And when I finished, the chairman of the board, the vice chairman of the board, put his arm over my shoulder and walked me out and said, that's exactly what we needed to hear. So I can truly say I've always punched above my weight, but I can also say that it was my faith that sustained me through that. And I truly believe in it. And I tell young people, as you get all of the stuff that you can get, you make sure that you build you a faith life as well, because I guarantee you will need it at some point in time.
Absolutely. If you agree with that, you know, go ahead and throw in the chat, you know, that you agree, or give us a thumbs up. And Charles, I want to transition a little bit and start thinking about the future. One of the things that John C. Maxwell talks about is that leaders are not satisfied with the status quo. Mm-hmm. And that leaders are working in the present, but they have an eye for the future. So what do you think are the opportunities, you know, for organizations like Urban Financial Services Coalition to make a difference in the upcoming years in the financial services industry?
Well, one of the things and one of the observations that I make is that the young people who are coming into this industry today are probably eminently better prepared than we were, you know, and I can speak for myself. We were good at some things, but I think that the young people that go into this are very bright, very, very well prepared. But the other thing of it, and I notice when I go into the bank where I worked, and I will say this, that my bank, I retired in 2008, and my bank has provided me with an office there at the bank building, in the bank building, ever since then. And about 2 years ago, they said they needed the office that I was in, and they moved me to an entire suite of offices with a conference room and all of that, you know. So I mean, that they have always been that supportive. But in going into the bank, when I see the people working in there, nobody seems to be having fun anymore. And it has become, in my opinion, the industry, and I can tell you, and Otis and Ernest can probably vouch for this, is that we had fun, I did, in banking. It was a serious business, but we had a lot of fun. And I just see it just doesn't look like it's so intense that it doesn't look like anybody's having fun. And so the challenge that I tell these well-prepared people is to make sure that you build an appropriate work-life balance. it's easy to get this thing out of kilter. Someone was sharing with me the other day the number of people who commit suicide, the level of alcoholism and drug addiction in the industry is fairly significant, and I think that a part of it attributes to the lack of proper balance in work and life, and again, that faith element I think has to be a part of that in order to navigate through what I think is a much more complex industry than it was when what I experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're in a time and era we have young people and us, quite frankly, have access to more information than we've ever had before. However, people are more lonely than they've ever been before. And, people have access to so much information that it's hard for them to discriminate, between what information is quality information for them to be able to make decisions on. So I'm gonna ask you this question. Those of you who are in the on the line, you can send your questions in either via chat or raise your hand so that I can so you can ask Charles your question or make a comment directly. But my question to you, Charles, if you had to go back and give the younger Charles Stewart, fashion model advice, what advice would you give the young fashion model Charles Stewart?
Well, I think that I have a grandson who is 22 years old, and I can't tell him a thing. He says, Papa, you're one of the smartest men I know. But he still thinks he's smarter than I am, so, but giving young people advice is something that is very challenging these days. But I thought of this question, and I don't know that I would give him any advice but to allow himself to experience all of life that will be presented to him, the bumps and the bruises, the knocks and the successes and the stumbling blocks as well. I think that one of the things that I think that previous generations have done after to try and level or pave a way for our young people is to anesthetize them from struggle, to anesthetize them from the challenges and bumps and bruises, and to make a way plain for them. But and as a result of that, I think that the things that many of us endured and stood up against, we grew stronger from that. But a lot of people, if they're not equipped, if they've not been equipped through the ups and downs that really constitute life, I think there's a strength that they don't have, but that they will need in time in trying to live in the world today. Young people are, a lot of times they're disconnected from each other than, they will communicate. My grandson communicates, he likes to text me, but he likes to use the fewest words possibly used. And I think that that's how they deal with each other. And I remember oftentimes when I read, and I think all of us older heads read the book Megatrends by John Nesbitt. That was a must read back in the day. And it reflected, and one of the things that he said was that as technology becomes more a part of our everyday life, that the high tech had to be balanced off with a high touch. And I think that's we see now. I see it as a reality in terms of what we needed to learn. So I would just tell him to experience all of life to its fullest, and know that, you know, through the bumps and the bruises, that you will be all right in the end.
Absolutely, absolutely. The those of you, to Charles's point on the book about megatrends, there's a new Netflix special called The Social Dilemma. It's called The Social Dilemma. I want to encourage all of you to check that out. You know, it really talks about the challenges with social media today, and some of the individuals who created the like button, that created the continuous strolling on websites and Google. It really talks about the impact. And most of those folks on there do not even allow their children on social media. These are the people who created this stuff. So it's something to be mindful. So one of the questions I got in the chat, Charles, is, you know, what are your current thoughts about this this current racial reckoning that's going on in the country?
Well, I think it shows the nature. I think it demonstrates, for one thing, where we are in time, demonstrates the systemic nature of racism. And I would never have thought back in the 70s, with where we were tracking and how we were tracking, that in 2020, that we would be dealing with some of the same issues and fighting some of the same old fights that had to be fought in the 60s. And but it reminds me of this old man used to tell me. He said, "Well, I'll bury the hatchet, but I'm going to leave the handle sticking up." And I think that's how the system of racism is, that it goes underground for a while, but that handle is left there, so that once the playing field has been somewhat level, and the cream is coming to the top, and sometimes the cream is chocolate milk, and people who have been accustomed to having privileges by virtue of their race cry for the system to be dialed back. And I think that's what we are experiencing today, where they're going back and grabbing that handle. And that system is diabolically brilliant in terms of accomplishing what it was built to accomplish. If you look back, and you look back over, going back even from Reconstruction, when Reconstruction did what it was supposed to begin to do and had started having the effects, then the equal and opposite reaction was the enactment of Jim Crow laws. When affirmative action started having the impact that it was supposed to have, the people who were accustomed to having those privileges, it then began to be dialed back after, I guess it was the Bakke case, the reverse discrimination, and where goals and targets then became something that was deemed to be negative. And so they began to turn that clock back. And so I think that we're in one of those periods. But as I said, I do sense that there is a difference. There seem to be people on the street, people protesting, people that are out there who were not there in the past. And I think that we're on the verge of seeing some real change. And I think that this there are a lot of different things that are going on. I have a relationship with some people that are actively involved in the movement, and one of the things that they say is that in this movement, and it's intentional, that there will not be a single Godhead, a single person, but that this movement will have a number of different heads, and these people are actually working together behind the scenes, and that the intent is that there will not be a single Godhead that then becomes a target to the system that they can take out and then end the movement. And so a lot of things are going on, and I'm very hopeful that in the near future, and the election will tell some, the election will be, I think, a determining factor in which direction we go in next, and what's going to happen in the country next.
Absolutely. They say that one of the best ways to predict the future is to create it. And we have that opportunity to create the future that we want by getting on the court, continuing to play, and to recognize that there is people who benefit from our oppression, and that we don't have to be co-collaborators in our oppression. We can be collaborators in our own freedom. So with that, Charles, we could talk to you all night, but it's closing time. I want to give you a chance to give some final thoughts, and then I'm going to show this clip, and then we're going to allow all of our good friends to enjoy the rest of their evening. Any final thoughts that you would like to share before we close out?
Well, one thing I want to say hello. I see my friend Ernie Smith on there. This is absolutely a treat for me, and it is so good to see you guys, and you're looking well, and I'm assuming that something we have to figure out what to do, but something needs to be done for the 50th that would
Yes.
that would be commensurate with that great outcome. So I hope that I'm still here, and I hope that we're here, and that we can be a part of whatever that is. But that might be a discussion that, if it's not already taking place, that it needs to take place very soon, I would think.
Yeah,
It's taking place, Charles, and I'm definitely engaging all of you all. If we've already started the conversation, this is very, very important. I probably won't be the president at that time because my term will be over, but I am aggressively working now to make sure that I can help lay some of that foundation for this 50th anniversary.
Outstanding. I would love to be a part of it and do whatever I can to help out with it.
I appreciate
we're gonna come to your house.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I think Little Rock would be more than happy to. I don't know if New York might have something to say about that. I don't know, but we definitely would love to have you here if that would be the decision.
Absolutely. Well, that's a possibility. We got it on the table. We got the national president, here. So she's an influencer, so she'll have some sway.
Excellent.
All right, so we're going to take a moment. I'm going to show you a clip that has if I can remove these things, a little bit of our Urban Financial Services Coalition history.
Mm-hmm.
right. I want to and encourage all of you. Those are some pictures that I got from Miss Julia Giles. And so I would love to have some Arkansas pictures from the Arkansas chapter, the archives, you know. So Charles, I know if you got in one of those rooms in the mansion, you know, I would love to see if we can uncover some of those pictures to send out, you know, Miss Stamps. I'd love to get some pictures from you. Nola, you know, we would love to get some pictures for you so that we can add it to our collection, and then we can add these to our videos and our stories. We do have a couple of upcoming events that we would like for all of you to be mindful of. We have one, Ola already talked about voting. You know, if you haven't voted, you know, please go out and vote early. If you have to wait in line, we want the outcome of the election to be determined early, especially those of you out there in Texas. We want Texas to turn, well, we can't tell people how to vote. We're a nonpartisan organization, but, you know, Texas can have a significant impact on the election this year. And then make sure all the young people get out and vote. Make sure your neighbor gets out and vote. Make sure the person that does your dry cleaning, make sure they get out and vote. Make sure everybody gets out and vote because it really makes a difference. So our upcoming session is that we have our View from the Top session, which will feature Nate Bennett, who's the Chief Diversity Officer and Senior Vice President and Head of Talent Management for Comerica Bank. He will be talking about why equity is now being added to diversity and inclusion in corporate America. That's going to be Wednesday, October the 28th at 12 noon. Actually, we have a double-decker. We have a double-decker on October the 28th. So we have Nate at 12. And then that evening, we're going to have Tyrone Davenport and Linda Forte, who are both retired but strong leaders in the Detroit market. They will be sharing their story about how Detroit became part of the National Association of Urban Bankers. And so we're so excited about having that tag team duo. Those of you who don't know, they're actually married, right? And so it'll be our first Urban Financial Services, NAUB married group, you know, sharing their experience with Urban Financial Services Coalition and the National Association of Urban Bankers. If you're not a member, we would ask you to consider becoming a member. All you have to do is visit our website. If you are a seasoned member and you haven't been a member in a while, come on home. We would like to have you back home in the family. We want the wisdom. We want to take some of the pearls and use it. You know, so if you don't have a local chapter in your area, we can make you a national member, and then we can make it happen for you. We want to have this strong professional family, you know, for the current day and for tomorrow's generation. And I always like to end with the saying, be a river, not a reservoir. To be a river means to take information and share it with other folks. You know, to be a reservoir is to keep the information to themselves. I do have a special announcement, is that the Operation Hope Global Forum will be taking place the latter part of this week. They have great speakers like T.D. Jakes and other people from the financial services industry. Janae Roscoe has put in the chat, we have a special code that you can utilize that will give you VIP access to the sessions and be able to ask questions. So if you're interested in participating in the Operation Hope Global Forum that will be taking place later this week, please use the link that Janae has provided in the chat, and you'll be able to get special access. You know, UFSC has been a good friend to Operation Hope, and Operation Hope has been a good friend to UFSC. You know, their chairman, John Hope Bryant, you know, started as a member of Urban Financial Services Coalition. out there in LA, and he's followed his passion to make a difference globally. And we were glad that we were able to be a part of that in the beginning, and we continue this wonderful relationship. So with that, we can all unmute ourselves and we can put on our screens and say good night to our good friend.
Good night. Thank you all so
Take care, Brother
much.
Charles. Good seeing you, man. Good seeing you.
Nice seeing you all,
Good
man.
night, everybody. Thank you for the
Good
history.
night. Thank you.
Thank you all for the